for a nice long while, and I'm glad you slowed down long enough for me to catch you. Thank you so much. In the land of I am, I am. In the teachings that we have, right, it says that, what we say after I am is very, very important. So I am happy to be here. Yeah. So I just want you to know that his was a very dangerous beauty. His beauty was such that it brought him into danger. But by him, I mean, there's this person, this master teacher that walked the earth. In Greek, his name is Jesus. Yes. Or in my grandmother's tongue, Southern, Jesus. Yeah. I did not know that Jesus had a last name, but it's Jesus. That's right. And his was a dangerous kind of beauty, because between the book of Malachi and Matthew, there are 300 years. 300 years since a particular culture has known a fiery, itinerant preacher. And this one's from those hotheads up in Galilee who speak Aramaic with an accent. So easy to distinguish. They didn't speak, he spoke Ebonic Aramaic. Okay. It takes a minute, but okay. Not quite the city tongue. And his was a dangerous beauty, because here's this hothead from Inglewood. Inglewood 20 years ago. And he's coming down, he's going to walk 100 miles south down to Jerusalem, and he's saying things that the erudite ones, the learned ones, aren't saying at all. The learned ones had the law, right? They had the rules and the regulations. Every once in a while you hear me slip into my grandmother's dialect.
That's all right.
Thank you. That was real good. That's all right. Jesus. In Aramaic, his name is Yeshua, or we would say Joshua. He's named after Joshua, the person who inherits the mantle from Moses. Moses didn't get to go to the promised land. We know that Dr. King is emulating Moses when he does his final talk. I've been to the mountaintop. Moses had gotten to go to the mountaintop, but like Dr. King said, I may not get to go there with you.
That's right.
But I have seen the glory. So Joshua is the one who goes. So he's named after not the one who was on the mountaintop, but who actually got to enter the city. Joshua, Yeshua. Jesus. So his was a dangerous beauty in that he was saying things that the locals weren't saying. He was causing funny feelings to be aroused and arising in people. If he hadn't been effective, he would have been in no trouble whatsoever. Try to think of what could, and if I'm being recorded, somebody fix this part, okay? What if one of the most famous ministers in the United States started getting chased by the President of the United States because of what the message is that's being said? This is this Yeshua guy. He's here, he's saying things that the teachers, the learned ones, aren't saying. They can't find the scriptures to make him wrong, so they have to tolerate him until they can finally build a case against him big enough to shut him the heck up. Yes. He does things like what they call scholastically. He has reversals, which means he's saying the opposite value than what is being lived at the time. He does these crazy reversals. He tells stories ain't nobody heard before. And it makes a difference. Had he not been a difference maker, there's no problem with him. You get a big preacher preaching to thousands and thousands, as long as they ain't dangerous, they'll get to preach their whole life long. Because they haven't said anything that touches a nerve, that they've said everything that's in agreement with how it's always been. But there was this Joshua, who came along and told stories that were the reverse of how it was being taught, your relationship with God was being taught. The one I want to tell you about is, there's a trilogy of stories. I call them the trilogy. It's the story of the lost coin. There's the story of the lost sheep. And what I'm bringing for you this morning is the prodigal son. There is this family. There's two boys in the family. And the younger boy decides he wants to go ahead and get all his earnings, all of his inheritance right now. And he wants to go out and live. He wants to go to Vegas. And he wants to have a good time. He wants to not be the younger child. Because when you're the younger child in the Near East at that day and time, you are not the Ihidiah. The Ihidiah is the thing, the word that God called Jesus during the baptism. Jesus goes down under the water, and when he comes up, he hears a voice, he sees a bird. But the thing that God says to him is what's going to get him in trouble. God calls him the Ihidiah. And that causes Jesus to have to run out into the desert and spend quite a bit of time trying to process, assimilate, and discern, and distill, and alchemicalize what he just was called, what he was just named by the presence of God, the Ihidiah. If you're the Ihidiah, you're usually the firstborn child. And that means that if your daddy was Paul Revere, who was a great silversmith, that meant that you would learn all the nuances and the secrets to working silver at such a level that no one can come close to your silver work. You really inherit the details of how to be a silversmith. Well, if you're the Ihidiah and God has called Jesus the Ihidiah, that means that you understand how to be with the human spirit at a level that your neighbors, your colleagues can't be. You can work the spiritual silver of a person's soul such that they become a living vessel for the very presence itself. So the older son, who's the Ihidiah, he's going to inherit everything. So the younger boy says, just give me my money. If you just pass me my money, Daddy, I will go and make my way into the world. And so he does. The younger child gets the money. He goes off. He's called prodigal, which means he spends the money wildly. You know, maybe it's still the same. Maybe he was spending it on wild women because you wouldn't spend money on tame women. You know, some good, delicious liquor. Maybe he was dancing the shing-a-ling, the cha-cha-cha. Okay, there must be more modern dances, but rap isn't invented yet. But whatever his version of that is, he's out there living wildly. And he eventually spends all of the money. He spends every bit of the money. And he has to get a part-time job. He gets a part-time job. A good little Jewish boy gets a part-time job working in the hog fields with swine. Now, pigs aren't good for Jewish people. They don't usually eat, except on special occasions, some bacon. Okay, my Jewish friends do that. I probably wasn't supposed to tell. They really don't deal with that particular animal for several reasons. Not only is it in the Torah not to eat that, but also the pig was once a goddess. And so since you can't have no other gods before me, you can't be eating the goddess pig, the boar. Okay. So he has a part-time job. The young boy who inherited and spent all his daddy's money, he has a job working on a pig farm feeding the pigs. He's not eating them, but he's feeding them the old corn that the pigs just enjoy. My grandfather on my daddy's side have a hog farm. Now these things were big enough to put a saddle on. They are not the cute little piglets you have as a pet. Right? These are big things, and you would take buckets of leftovers out there in the world. Was that my timing? I have 10 minutes. Retooling. And he realizes, I'm eating what the swine are eating, but my father's servants eat better than I'm doing. I'm going to go home and I'm going to ask my dad for a job as a servant. See, that's where I get, I'll be home for Christmas.
All right.
Okay, so Christmas isn't invented yet, so he's on his way for Hanukkah. He's going to go home. Ain't that the truth of our lives during this holiday season, is that we start to turn toward the festival of lights. Lights in every single culture happen right about now. He's going to go home. I'll be home for Christmas. And so he starts to make his way home. The stunning thing, the reversal in this story that Joshua would have been telling is this part right here. This would have gotten him crucified. This got him in trouble. Is when he says, he's telling the crowds this story, and he says, and the father sees the boy coming. He sees him. So over there in the desert, there's a lot of dust. So he's kicking up dust way over there. You've seen that on Wagon Train. You know, like you can see the horses are kicking up dust. And you know somebody's coming. The father sees the dust, the kicked up dust of the son coming home. Tashuvah. He's returning home. He's changed his mind. He has repented. He's going to come home and be restored to his family. He's coming home. And the part that's going to get Jesus crucified is that it says the father sees the boy and runs out to meet him. Runs out to meet him is a reversal for how it usually goes with God. How it was taught that it goes with God is that it's full of rules and regulations. You put your right hand in, you take your right hand out, you put your right hand in, and you shake it all about. The rules and regulations. The Father never hunts you. The Father is never on the lookout for you in the way it is usually taught. But this master teacher says that the thing you want wants you too. So it's on the lookout for you, kicking up the dust of you having changed your mind and start to head home to your own right life. And then it sees it and it gets a party ready to go. It gets a party ready to welcome you home. I want you to know that this story of the prodigal son, you too are coming home for Christmas. This story is about you. What this master teacher wanted you to know is that God is looking for you too. We don't usually get that the presence is interested in your life. We think we're doing all the rule-making, rule-keeping, but there's something on the lookout for your very life. And as soon as you shift your consciousness, it is ready to go and has prepared a feast of abundance and prosperity for you to step into right now. And it don't matter how long it takes you to get home. I want you to know when you get home, there is already a feast prepared for you. When Johnny Mathis sings, I'll be home for Christmas, the Father is already knowing that you are on the way. You are so precious to the present. See, we always find out, oh, I'm going to worship God, I'm going to worship God, and all that's good and yummy and true. But what we don't often know is that God wants us to. We don't usually let ourselves know that we are wanted by the presence as well. It doesn't matter how long it takes. I want you to know, only 2 Thursdays ago, I finally got forgiven. Just 2 Thursdays ago. I had done something in my youth, and I thought it was written on my heart with an indelible pen, a Sharpie. And I thought I could never get it off. As a matter of fact, I had prepared a life of limping. I was only going to get to have so much life because I felt like I had to pay, and I had to pay, and I had to pay. And then 2 Thursdays ago, I was in front of a colleague, and she said, What if, Rev. Joe, you were to relinquish your view that there's something wrong with you? What if you had to give up, I'm not worthy? What if you just had to lay it down? What if you couldn't say it anymore? What if it couldn't be your story for not living the life you were called to live? What if you couldn't live your too small life because of your own self-description? What if you had to shwak, which means forgive, open it up, unleash yourself? The house arrest bracelets came off my consciousness. I'd been under house arrest nearly all of my life. And finally, the indelible ink stain that I thought was there was actually only there in my memory. It wasn't actually written in that kind of ink. And in that moment, that pivot to moment, I get to come home. And what's happening on my decision, my choice to come home, is that a feast is being prepared for me. This Jesus, he blessed the unblessable. This is a reversal. He blessed our hunger. He blessed our thirst. He said, holy, my thirst is holy. My thirst is holy. He blessed our grief. Holy, my grief is holy. My grief is holy. He blessed our hurt. Holy, my hurt is holy. My hurt is holy. Those are the Beatitudes. He came along and he blessed the unblessable. He healed people who have been sick in body, mind, and spirit. People who had limped. The lame started walking. People who had been blind to their own truth, their own goodness. I, like the prodigal son, had spent all my self-esteem. I, like the prodigal son, had spent all my worthiness. I, like the prodigal son, had spent and squandered all my self-worth. And still, I get to go home like you. I just want you to know, church, I'll be home for Christmas. It doesn't matter how long it's taking. I know I'm running over. I just got to tell this one last thing. I feel so very Baptist-y. And so I got to see this clip. I think it's on a place called YouTube. I am still madly in love with my IBM Selectric typewriter. I go to garage sales to buy old IBM Selectric typewriters for parts. So I can keep my one machine going with the little element that spins. I love this thing. So I think there's a place called U and a Tube. And on it, I saw the transformation of my life that I bring to you this morning, going home for Christmas. There is this creature that lives in the Arctic. It's called the Arctic woolly bear caterpillar. The Arctic woolly bear caterpillar can only eat in the spring of the Arctic, which is very, very short, sometimes less than 40 days. It eats, and then the winter freeze comes upon it, and it is frozen for the whole winter. In the spring, it thaws again and continues eating that leaf. It's on its way. It has to eat enough so it can produce a cocoon. But it doesn't often do that because the seasons are so short. It eats and freezes, and it eats and freezes. I don't know about your life, but I have eaten and frozen several times. Several times I have been fully stopped, fully terrified of not just what is upsetting and wrong with me, but sometimes my goodness has scared me to death. Sometimes the calling on my life looks too big. I've eaten and frozen and eaten and frozen. And it says that the woolly bear caterpillar can do this for 14 years. It can take 14 years to finish eating enough so that it can spin the cocoon, have a season, and then come out as the Isabella tiger moth. 7 to 14 years. My friends in the movie business said they were very careful with Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day, this man is in a day. They kind of want you to know it takes a long time to learn to play jazz on the piano, but they never fully tell you how long it takes. But that was 14 years. He was 14 years in the same day. If we're not careful, unless we tashuvah, change our mind, decide to go home, we will live 80 years in one day, the same one day for 80 years. But there is a day when your wings will call you to this moment. I'm declaring that moment today.
Yes.
I am saying this today. That you're coming, that you finally got the chrysalis going. You stayed in there, you dissolved, you got wings. And now you have a life of flight, a life you can soar inside of. I am telling you, come home for Christmas. Come home for the Mass of life. I want you to become a recipient of the good of God. I want you to take this phrase home. There's nothing left to do. D-E-W. Because when you come home, there's no way to deserve your life. You can't deserve it. It's a gift. It's a grace. Grace, taibutha, the forever givingness of the presence. There's no way. Be a recipient because you can't deserve your life. E, you cannot earn it. There's nothing you can do to earn being the image and likeness of God. You're already it. You have to come up on it. Ooh, you're the elephant in the living room. Dreaming and having a nightmare of being a giraffe. D-E-W, you can't work hard for it. There's nothing you can do to go home for Christmas except go home, except awaken yourself. Become a recipient of the life that is already yours. Be a recipient. It's like being a being who can receive. On my way here, I Ubered here from Santa Monica. I Ubered here, and it occurred to me a few days ago, I was sitting in front of what I thought was a psychotherapist. She might be, but she's also a clairvoyant person, right? What is that? When you yeah, and she would channel people who are already on the other side. So I'm sitting there, I'm ready to be psychotherapized. And you know, if it's not one thing, it's your mother. And she says, it's time to step into your destiny. You're called to wingedness. And in the Uber, I realized that my destiny is a bowl. It holds many things. It's not just a one thing, but your destiny is a bowl. You hold many things. You can't deserve your life in God. You cannot earn your life in God, and you cannot work hard for it. The spiritual practices are a trick in consciousness devised by spiritual leaders to do the shell game with you. The shell game happens a lot in New York on street corners. There's walnut shells, 3 of them with a little pea or something underneath it. And they want you to guess where the pea is. So they move the shells around really fast and you have to pick. It's like Vegas, so the house always wins. But in the presence of God, there's a pea underneath every shell. You have to choose to live your life as the very presence that you are. You would have to risk. The payment is your too small life. You will have to pay with your too small life to live the life you are called to live. There is a life you are called to live. And so all you have to do is just go home. Just go home. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. It's the world didn't give it. Sing that. The world didn't give it. The world. Keep singing that. The world didn't give it. The world didn't give it. My mama. The world didn't give it. My daddy. The world didn't. The situation. The world didn't. The circumstances. The world didn't. The events. The people. The way the sun rose. The way the sun set. Everything in my past. The world can't take it away. The world didn't give it. The world didn't give it. So the world can't take it away. I'll be home. Thank you. Okay. We have Arne, and then I just risk being me anyway. Thank you. It is great to sing with the choir, I must say. So I would love to invite the ushers forward. Do they just come to here?
Yes.
And then turn out? Cool. And as you reach and prepare your gift, do so mindfully. There's a law of circulation at hand. Here's the thing. Nature abhors a vacuum. Have you heard that rumor? So whatever I have in my hand, and I let it go into this vacancy, now nature gets to rush into my hand to fill it again, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Which means in the marketplace, when you bought your wheat and corn, you held out your special apron, you and your family, and the merchant would fill your apron, and you would try to press it down, shake it together, till it's running over. It's saying that this is true for you and our blessed time of giving. That we will know that what we let go of in our hand, the universe opens its hands to us and blesses our spiritual community, and it blesses each one of us. And then, ushers, do you go forth? Go ye therefore forth?